Welcome to the second webinar we're going to be doing with Midnight. Last time they were here, they were talking just about blockchain in general, learning about how it works, the technology behind it, some things like smart contracts. And then today they're actually going to talk about Midnight, the product at their company has. And today we have Lauren Lee here, who's in charge of DevRel at Midnight. But speaking today is going to be Jay, who is on that team at Midnight. And we're super excited to hear from y'all. Thank you so much for coming. And please take it away. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you for the invite and bringing us all together to talk about Midnight. So hi, everyone. I go by Jay. I'm a DevRel engineer at the Midnight Foundation. Today, I will introduce you to Midnight, how it works, what makes it different from other blockchain networks, our use cases, and how developers can get started right away. So let's get started. In the past, companies have built their businesses with centralized databases, and they liked building on these systems because it offered permission control over their data and the data of their customers. Now, the problem with that is that the same control and access has left customers' data vulnerable since employees have access to that data. They can be hacked, they can mishandle the data, they can change the data themselves or wipe it entirely. And we see these issues arise every year. Even the giants in this space always run into this problem. Millions of dollars are lost in data leaks and breaches. Terabytes of data are leaked online. You can find people's personal information on plenty of different sites. Companies are fined for billions of dollars. And most businesses have to prepare for this because in many cases for them, it almost seems inevitable. So as blockchains emerged, the infrastructure provided security guarantees. We prevented workers from being able to alter the data, make changes, update it without the permission of the user. And blockchains created a new standard for financial data to be shared and engaged with across financial institutions. But as part of the standard, all of the companies and the users' data became public. When you look at networks like Ethereum, Solana, all these other networks, all of your data is on-chain, accessible to the public. So on public chains, every action leaks metadata. Who you interacted with, the programs you interacted with, when, how often, if there's a pattern in your behavior, all of it is visible to the public and on-chain. So even when money doesn't move, if you're like updating the state of a video game or you're voting on proposals, maybe you're buying and selling goods or interacting with things in the real world, all of your data is online and we can track all of it. So with it being visible to the public, this makes many of the real world use cases almost impossible, in some cases illegal to operate. Think about industries like healthcare where there's HIPAA laws and how you can share your information. A lot of that information can't be on chain and can't be public. So we've created something different. Now, there's no real reason for a lot of the users' personal data to be stored in databases or blockchains in general. Personal private data is mostly useful when we need to verify ownership of the data, when we need to update it, or we need to qualify that a specific user has rights to engage with that data, engage in a transaction or an update to their accounts. So here's what we built at Midnight. In a Midnight application, the private data stays on a user's device. Now, when a user interacts with the application, they disclose their secrets to the program on their device. Now, when an update is made to the network, rather than sharing their secrets, the application generates proofs that a specific program ran using their secrets. So there's proof of their secrets, there's proof of the program ran, and the proofs act as a verification layer between the users and the blockchain. So once those proofs are generated, the user can read data, they can submit an update or process a transaction on the network. Now, all types of businesses are compliant with regulations, and they alleviate themselves of having to deal with the burden of managing that data. It's no longer stored on their databases. They don't have to worry about the leaks, the hacks, some of their employees may be manipulating this data. Now, we've covered how data is managed on the network, how most of it stays on your device, and how we generate proofs in order for you to transact on the network. Now, let's touch on how we facilitate updates to the network. On most blockchains, one token is used for everything. So in the case of like Ethereum, in order to store value, you have ETH, the token. In order to govern the network, you're also using ETH. In order to make updates, to pay for transactions, to pay for your fees, you're using ETH. So in all these cases, you're using one token to do everything. And when the same token is both the asset and the fuel for the network, then you're susceptible to all of the speculation within that network. If speculators hoard the token, then your costs are going to rise. It becomes more costly for you to access that resource. If they dump it, then your costs are going to crash. So all of these unpredictable actions by third parties are influencing your business. And it makes it impossible to predict what your business operating expenses are, because today it could be a low price, tomorrow it could be another price. And once you're dealing with millions of transactions, that can have a drastic impact on your costs. So Midnight engineers thought, how can we incentivize the maintenance of a system where the data doesn't change? The information we need to be public is public. The personal private data remains on people's devices, and the cost to operate a business on this network is stable and predictable. So the answer is further decentralization. We've established that Midnight's application isolates the user's private data from the rest of their data, but it also separates the resource used to update the network from the resource used to transact on the network. So we have a token called Night, which is the currency of the network. It grants voting rights to the network, and it's used to secure the network. And by holding Night, you generate dust in a separate account and a separate wallet. So when you make updates to the network, you're actually spending from that dust account. So dust is shielded while Night is public. So any updates that use dust can be done without revealing any information on the user's wallet that holds Night. So it's almost like you're having these two separate accounts, and all of your activity is decoupled. Your financial data is decoupled from your account data. So the two resources make it possible to separate the data. And you can update a game, vote on a proposal, and no one will be able to see the activity within your Midnight wallet. So to recap, Midnight applications hold your data locally again. We generate proofs of the data that allows you to make updates to the network. And then when you make those updates, you're spending from a dust wallet that's decoupled from your main wallet that holds your value, all of your interactions online. So we covered the architecture, but it may seem a bit abstract to anyone who's sitting here. So let's go through some use cases and some common systems I tend to see on the network. So the way I look at it is that there are 6 common types of systems that I tend to see and people tend to work on. So let's go through some examples. The first is private identity checks. So this is about proving who you are without revealing who you are. The system still checks the same things. So maybe an ID that you would need to provide to say that you are of a certain age, but instead of uploading it to a cloud, you just have it stored locally on your device. We generate the proofs that say you are of age, that you qualify for these things, and then you can begin interacting with the network. So take as an example, student discounts. Today, you upload your student ID or you're verifying it through some sort of third-party system, and that creates an account and you store information with those third parties. But with Midnight, you just prove, hey, here's my ID, I'm a student. And now you can begin engaging with updates within the network, within Midnight. Or think about logging into apps. So today you use email, Google, social logins, and your account becomes your identity and it gets tied to everything you do online. But with Midnight, you log into your wallet, which is completely separate from your email, from all these identifying pieces of information. So your device proves, hey, this is the same user as it was before without it tying to your personal data. So the app can verify it's you, but they don't get your name, they don't get your email, they don't get any of your personal info. So the shift is from sharing your identity to getting access to just proving your identity and you keeping your data on your devices. So Midnight removes all of these complications of having to deal with the data, uploading it, and giving your data over to third parties. And the system just learns one thing, that this user is valid and nothing else. Now, the next section is private eligibility and rule enforcement. So we want to be able to prove that you qualify without sending your data over again. So this is about enforcing rules without collecting or storing the information. So take proving that you could afford something. Today, you upload your documents, maybe you connect a bank account, you share some bank statements, and that gives the company full access to your financial data. But with Midnight, you can just have the bank statements locally, and then you can prove, hey, because of the income flowing into my accounts, I do qualify for this loan, for maybe this rental application. So they get the answer without getting your financial history. And that's the key here. It's about proving facts about your data without handing your data over. Or think about applying for a job or an internship. So today you may submit your full resume. I know, at least in my time, we were even putting our addresses on our resume. But why is that really relevant? You just need to know my work experience, the companies I work for. You need to prove those kind of things, right? So with Midnight, you could prove I meet the requirements for this role, maybe even have certifications from these other organizations, maybe even have your history documented and prove that you worked for these organizations. So instead of you're sending your data to get evaluated, Midnight can prove that you qualify and you keep your data on your device again. So today, every time you want to check something, you have to usually give up more information that's necessary. You're creating this stored data on some sort of database that could be hacked, could be manipulated, and you're exposing a lot of details that aren't relevant in many cases. They just want to know your history. Let's prove your history. So Midnight removes a lot of these complications. The next section I think about is group decisions. And this is a big one within our organization, within Midnight, within blockchains in general. When multiple parties are involved, you usually have to choose between privacy and trust. So either everyone shares their inputs, right? You see everyone's votes and you can be like, okay, that person made this vote, this person made that vote. Or you trust someone to handle it, right? Someone collects all the votes and then they're responsible with looking at everything and saying, okay, this is the outcome. So let's take auctions and see how this differs. So if bids are visible, let's say there's a government organization and they put a job out there and there's multiple companies bidding for that job. You may not want to show what your bid is to another organization because maybe you're basing your pricing off of each other rather than what the cost of the service is. So if bids are visible, you lose your advantage. And if they're hidden, you have to trust whoever's running the auction. You have to say, okay, they picked the person with the best bid rather than they picked the person who is their favorite. So with Midnight, everyone can submit their bids privately, and the system proves who the winner is and the final price is correct without ever seeing or exposing each other's bids. So the same thing applies to things like voting, and we've seen controversy over voting systems across the world lately. Here, you can vote, all of your data stays private, but we can verify that you did vote. That's the vote that you said you did is correct. So you don't have to trust how the decision was made. You don't have to trust an individual. You can verify that it was correct with our proving system. So up until now, we've talked about identity, eligibility, and group decisions. This one is a bit different. It's about your history over time. So a lot of decisions are based on who you are. They're based on what you've done. So think about like a rewards program, super simple, right? You go into a coffee shop, you make a couple of purchases, and we're tracking your individual purchase. I see you made a purchase today, you made a purchase, a week before, and I'm tracking every individual purchase. But we don't necessarily have to give all that information. This is a super simple example. But with Midnight, your activity can stay with you, right? So you can just prove on the 10th purchase, you can verify to that organization, hey, I've qualified for your reward because I made 10 purchases of coffee without you documenting what store I made those purchases, when I made them, what size my purchases are, so you can mine this data on me. So with Midnight, you can prove I've been using this thing for over a year. I've been engaged in this for a long time. I've made a certain amount of purchases without handing your data over. So you don't need to show your history, just what your history proves. Now think about protected commerce and marketplaces. This is where we're connecting multiple parties to do business, buys, sells, partnerships, those kind of things. So markets today are built on visibility. What you look at, what you compare, and what you're willing to pay, all of that information is often being tracked and used. And more recently, we've been seeing that this is kind of a problem because some platforms are starting to charge you based on your personal behavior. We've already known this for years where airlines will monitor what you're doing, how long you're staying on their page, how desperate you are to make that purchase of an airline ticket. And then they're going to charge you more because they understand that that pressure is on you. So take shopping online, right? Today, platforms can see what you're clicking, how long you look at it, when you come back to the platform. And the data can influence pricing, your recommendations. So think about if you're like selling something, if you're buying something, all that data is being managed and monitored. But on Midnight, your behavior can stay private. And we actually seen an example of this yesterday where there's a browser application that serves you ads, but it runs on your private data. So these advertisement agencies, they don't necessarily have access to this data. They have to serve a bunch of ads, and then the engine has to match you without revealing your data to those organizations. So they can't take advantage of things like pricing of your activity online. So you can browse, buy, sell online without exposing your intent, your strategy, or anything about your identity. So this creates markets where the price isn't influenced by your online activity, by your own behavior being used against you. The outcomes just follow some rules and not some hidden advantages that these companies are putting together, some algorithms they're using against you. And it applies to much more than shopping. We've covered kind of job applications where I can verify maybe you have a credential, you have a degree, and I can show you jobs relevant to that. Not only is that applicable to you, but think about people who are hiring that want to verify credentials. Right now on websites like LinkedIn and stuff, it's almost impossible to verify if people are real, if they are credentialed. But if you have your certificates locally, you generate proofs on them, you can prove that you have a degree before you even get access to seeing these jobs, things like that. So Midnight enforces the rules without exposing either side of the business. Now, the last one I want to cover is social apps. And I think this one, for me personally, is more interesting because we've seen that in many countries, what you post online could be very controversial. It could be potentially used against you. Some people are receiving fines, maybe even jail time based on things that they're saying online, just because some sort of governing body said, we don't like that, right? So with Midnight, you can post, interact, and participate online without tying everything back to who you are. So think about posting in a community, right? Today, your posts are tied to your accounts, maybe your email, and we're building a profile of you over time. Even when we see people being called out for things that they're doing online, sometimes you see people going back a decade into their history on Reddit and what they're posting there and tying all these things and creating kind of an image of who that person is, or at least who they perceive them to be. So with Midnight, you can post as a verified member without revealing who you are. The moderators would be able to verify that you have access to that. Maybe you meet a certain qualification, you fit into a certain group, like you work for a specific company, or maybe you're enrolled within a specific university, so you can gain access to university forums without revealing exactly who you are. So maybe you want to post a complaint about the university and you don't want it tied back to your email, or to your accounts, to your school records. So we can verify that you belong to the school or you belong to this company. And let's say in the case of company, you're a whistleblower. You want to report something that's going on in the company. You can verify that you have access to an email without sharing what that email is. So we can verify proofs that you're a worker, that you belong to this organization without revealing who you are. So with Midnight, you can prove that you belong to a group without revealing your identity. Now think about other controversial things like forums, maybe for mental health records, right? You may want to be talking about mental health, about maybe some things, some difficulties you're going through without sharing exactly who you are, revealing identity. So you can still qualify for these kind of things, interact with them without revealing personal information. So we've covered a bunch of different types of use cases, common systems that I see. And the key with all of these systems is that there's a common pattern. So you keep all of your data private, you prove what matters, and then a third party can verify that result, which allows you to make updates to their applications, to their websites, to their apps, and for you to process transactions on our network. So at Midnight, you keep your data and you prove the result is correct. So this lets you build systems where it's private, verifiable, and a lot of the things that you want to engage with blockchains are usable in the real world. So earlier in this conversation, I mentioned like medical records, right? You can have your medical records on local devices, maybe some of that data even coming from devices within hospitals. But if you want to, let's say, engage with a transaction, you want to engage with a third party, you may not want to reveal your medical records. You may just want to say, hey, I need this prescription from this pharmacy. All you need to know is proof that I've ran these tests, that I have these sort of levels. Let's say in the case of diabetes, I have this sugar level, right? And I qualify for insulin. You may not want to show your whole medical history, but you want to prove that, hey, you qualify for this prescription, a doctor wrote it, and you can actually purchase it. So it makes a lot of these systems where you have private data a lot more frictionless and a way to facilitate and manage all of that data. So many of the use cases that I covered today are already being worked on by many of our ecosystem partners. So you can see kind of, this is a bit old, now we even have better partners, but you can see plenty of our organizations that we're working with right now. And in the near future, I hope that like people on this call end up either working for these companies or maybe even starting up your own companies and working with us in the future. Now, beyond the companies, the partnership, the architecture we've covered, I wanted to briefly touch on some of our community. So to appreciate the size of our community, at least this was kind of months old, and it's grown even more significantly since then. But we've had over 14,000 smart contracts deployed on our testnet last year. Over 2.4 billion Night tokens were claimed by people on 8 different ecosystems. So not only are we building the technology that will be the privacy layer for Web3 and for Web2 applications, but we're also building the community. And if you want to gain access to that community, you can start building applications on the network today on our testnet. So let's get quickly into building on Midnight. We cover the common types of systems, some of our partners, the community. Let's talk about building. So here are some fundamentals that you'll need to understand once you get into our language. And I wanted to highlight these because no matter what program you look at, you're going to see these common things over and over. So start with understanding the fundamentals when you're building on Midnight. For Midnight, we have a programming language called Compact, which is similar to TypeScript. So if you know TypeScript, you'll be pretty familiar with this and you'll be able to pick up the language quickly. Here are 5 main pieces of syntax that you'll need to understand. The first is ledger. So that's what you're putting on chain, what you're publishing to the world, what's going to be available to the network. The next is a witness. This is private data, right? The information that you want on your local device. It could be like your wallet address. It could be a private key. It could be something about your medical records, like we talked about earlier, or it could be your app activity, maybe something you did in a video game. We pass it along with a function called witness in our program. And then most of our methods or functions that run in our program, we call them circuits. So these are operations that update or they check the state of the ledger and produces a zero knowledge proof of correct execution. That, hey, the right inputs were given to me. I ran this particular program, and here's the proof that I did that. And within those circuits, all the functions we have, there's asserts and disclosures. So for asserts, that's verifying information about the user. Maybe you want to say, hey, before I make this update to the network, I want to verify that they own this wallet or they own that piece of data. So we make that check, and then we'll make the update to the network. And then this last one is disclose. It's kind of like a keyword that's used throughout a programming language so that while you're writing your program, you have to explicitly state, hey, I'm going to reveal this information, right? I'm going to share this. So we make it a requirement for you to disclose certain pieces of information. Otherwise, your contracts won't compile. So anything that's passed through like a parameter, that usually has to be disclosed if you want to post it onto the ledger, you want to make updates, make that public. And I want to briefly go over one of our examples that we have on our repos. So think about a digital billboard, right? Like in the top right, we have a billboard that's digital. Anyone could update, let's say, what's on there, right? Where you see the ledger, the witness, the circuit here, this is actually directly from one of our example contracts. I just copied and pasted it over. So this is a working example that you can see in our repo, right? And as I mentioned earlier, the things that we want revealed in this case, in the ledger, the thing that's going public is a message. In this case, we have an image, but it may say, hey, join GitHub Academy or something like that, right? So you want to be able to post a message. And then we also want to track who is the owner of that message, right? So that only you can make the updates to it. And we don't have someone else maybe messing with your ads or your billboard, something like that. So this is exactly how you would write the ledger components of this, right? You just export your ledger, name whatever your variable is, and then the data type that you want within that ledger. Now for the witness in this case, the program is written to just pass along the user's wallet address. So here we're just passing along the user's local secret, and we'll be able to call that function to utilize that data that's sitting local on your device. And I mentioned lastly, the circuit. These are kind of the main programs that are running, that are verifying information before it makes updates. And once that information is verified, posting those updates. So in here, we have a circuit called post. It takes in a new message. And then right after, it does an assert, right? So we're checking, okay, is there already a message posted on that billboard? If there is, then we're saying, hey, you attempted to post when someone's already occupying that space. If not, then we want to document the owner. And as I mentioned, whenever we're taking something from a witness, we have to disclose that we're actually using that we're going to publish it. So you can see right away here that we're disclosing who the owner is. So we have to create that syntax that says we know what we're doing. We know that we're publishing this. So we sign it to the owner, and then the message is the same thing. We're taking in the message from the parameter. Whenever we're taking that in, and then we're publishing that data to the ledger, we have to specify we are going to disclose this information. And then once your owner has been assigned, your message has been updated, we just want to update the state to say this is occupied. Now, the state piece is managed by kind of an enum I just took that out of this example just to make it a bit simpler to digest. But if you look at our contracts in our repo, it's not much more than this. We have an option for you to take down the message, for you to do other things there. But for you to post a message with minimal requirements, this is kind of it. This is how you post to the ledger. This is how you verify information and how you take something from a local witness. So we covered, the programming language, the architecture, some use cases. Now let's get into some resources. We have a ton that we offer for developers. So first is our developer hub. If you go to our website here at midnight.network/developer hub, you can see all the different resources that I'm going to cover in the next minute, from our Aliit program, our docs, all the different initiatives that we're running. Next, you can look at our getting started if you want to start programming right away, right? Let's say you bought into the message, you like it, you want to start building, click on this getting started. I'll share these slides after the presentation so you have access to all these links. But here's our getting started guide, right? It's installing our compiler, installing Docker, all the information that you would need to start building programs. And then immediately after this, you can get into our quick start and work on creating your first Hello World application. Besides that, we have a list of awesome dApps that people within our community have built. So if you want to see great examples of what works really well on Midnight, you can go visit this repo. You'll see examples that our team has created that we manage that you can also reference. The B-board example that I just kind of went over is right here. So you can see all the details, the contract, how it works, spin up the UI and see what it would look like online. We also have like loan applications, little video games. We have smart contracts that you can reuse from other professionals that have built on our network. We have starter templates to kick up right away and some developer tools that you can visit. So there's a ton of different resources, examples of finance application, identity applications, video games. You can check everything that people have built on the network here. Next, I want to mention our Midnight YouTube. We host a dev hangout every Wednesday, and we'll actually do one in about an hour. And in that one, we're going to teach people how to code a loan application, right? So you can tune into our YouTube every Wednesday. We'll host either an ecosystem partner. We'll bring someone up from the community to share their work. We'll do some live coding. It's an opportunity for devs to come learn about what we're working on and learn more about Midnight. Now, those are some of the resources, but let's talk about some of the tools. So these are some tools for some of our ecosystem partners. So midnames, as I mentioned, like one of the common use cases I start to see when people build on our network is they want to do identity checks. They want to verify someone's identity. So midnames is one of our ecosystem partners who's created decentralized identities. So they can help you manage identities with their SDK, and they also offer name services. So think about like having a domain name. Now you can have a Web3 domain name where not only do I use that domain to access your website, but I can send you money directly to that domain and it'll be funneled into your wallet. So there's some cool tools that our ecosystem partners already built that you can access. So you can click on here, go to midnames, learn more about the different use cases. They have a ton of different things that you can use it for like identity, employment, AI automation. So check out all the things that you can do with their tools. Now we also have another platform that used to called Web3 Fast, but it's a wallet and a no-code platform. I was actually checking it this morning and realized it was updated to 1 a.m. So that's the new name for the platform. And here you can just type in like, hey, I want to make a voting application, and it'll start generating the different contracts that you need. It can even compile a lot of them in browser. So if you want to get started just tinkering, maybe you don't feel too comfortable writing the language yourself, you can test it out here. Besides that, we have Mesh.js, which is a JavaScript library that you can utilize with a bunch of different components for you to get started really quick. They have templates, a bunch of different things you can utilize. So I highly suggest using Mesh.js and checking them out too if you need help building those core components. And of course, we have an MCP server. So if you're using Claude Code and you want a skill that you can reference that understands our docs, understands our examples, knows our repos, you can reference our Midnight MCP server. I have it installed myself. Sometimes when I want to check something, sometimes I want to like review my own code. It always just references the skill and says, hey, you did this wrong, or this is how you update your contract or do this particular thing. So this is accessible to everyone. You can just add this Midnight MCP server into your config file and get started building right away. So those are the different tools we have available. And now let's cover how we support our builders. So if you want to get started with building on Midnight, you can scan this QR code now, and it'll give you a 2-pager document that we put together that contains all of the different things I covered right now, which is our examples, our tools, all the different programs that we run. So if you want to understand how to get more involved as a developer, here's all your resources. And let's go through some of the ways we support our builders. So first is the Midnight Academy. This is a curriculum we put together that goes from blockchain 101 to Midnight 101 to building applications and deploying them on our network. So you can go through this course, earn certifications. There's people always posting their certifications on Twitter, on our Discord to share like, hey, I went through the course and this is my proof, We also offer ZealyQuest, which is a gamified way for you to learn similar things. We also have the sprints that we kick up from time to time. So like more recently, we did a gaming sprints where you can deploy video games, test them out, and get points for the different activities you're doing on our network. And we have this leaderboard where you can see the other people in our community, what they're doing, and kind of how you compare to them. Maybe you see a developer that's doing a lot of cool things. You want to see, hey, what did they learn about in order to get to that point, right? You can click on their profiles, see the different quests that they've completed, and go through those quests yourself. Besides that, we have Aliit. So our Midnight Elite Fellows are kind of people that we have interviewed who have been in our ecosystem. We work really closely with them, and they're our fellows. They help builders, they educate them, and they host the events all around the world. So they're here to help different developers understand our stack, help them build and get comfortable. Besides that, we have the Build Club, and this is a program that I work more closely with. It's an 8-week pre-seed accelerator where we take teams from their idea on pen and paper, MVP. We help them with marketing, their business development. We help them put together like business plans, their pitch decks, and we prep them to sit in front of an investor, pitch their idea in hopes that they can get their first check. So not only are we helping you kind of understand the network, build applications through structured programs, but we want to see you succeed. We want to see you build companies out of our network, and we'll help you get there. So check out the Build Club if you're interested in building on our network and building a company. Next, we have our community board. It's our GitHub where you can see everything that our community is working on. I encourage you to look at this issues tab because here you can see the different things that people are working on, maybe some bugs that they're reporting, some updates they want to see, but then you can see things like here, like tutorials that people are working on. Someone's like, hey, I want to build a private, AMM. Here's the information about it. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's my article maybe that I'm working on. You even see people posting about videos that they're working on, stuff that they want to share, different content that they're like, hey, we need to talk about this kind of thing. We even have DApp proposals. If you scroll to the bottom here, we have these DApp proposals where our product team has gone out, talked to investors, they've done some product research, and they're able to understand kind of what works really well on the network. And if you're looking for inspiration for an idea, you can always check out this board, look for DApp proposals, and these are full-fledged applications that you can build out that were thought out by some of our product managers. Now, besides the community board, we also have a Midnight forum. So if you have questions, you have updates you want to share with the community, you can always post here. We're regularly checking this. I often surface community updates from here. So if someone built something that I think is cool, I'll reach out to you, bring you onto one of our dev hangouts so you can share what you've been working on with the rest of the community. So those are the different ways that we support our developers. If you want to see more of that, scan the QR code. You'll get all the resources you need. So today we kind of did a crash course on the architecture, how Midnight works, how do you get started, what our programming language looks like, the different tools available, how we support builders. So I want to thank you all for inviting me to come speak to you. That's the end of my talk, and thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jay. Big round of applause. I did see on that list of issues the provable bug bounty board, and I was like, that's kind of neat. Back when I was a community manager for a cybersecurity company. Uh-oh. Hold on. But when I was a community manager, there was an issue where we just had people like not able to prove that they had gotten a bug or that they had actually found a bug. So something that like verifies it and says, no, for real, we got it. It's proved, it's true, without exposing the private information that something like that could expose is super, super neat sounding. Really cool. Thank you both for coming, Jay. Thank you, Lauren. I want to open up if there's any questions y'all have. There wasn't a ton in the chat. That's fine. But if y'all have any questions, I do want to leave it a little time for it because we've got the time for it. And then is there any stuff coming up for midnight soon, Jay or Lauren? What's going on while we're thinking of questions if we have any?
I guess, Lauren, would you like to share any updates?
There's a big one. Our network is going live very soon. In fact, this month. And so it's March 25th. So that's within a few days, one might say. So it's really exciting time to be a part of this ecosystem. It's nice to be talking with you all today because you can kind of claim to be a part of the OG ecosystem, if you will. You know, you were here before, it was cool. And I hope in the future that will be maybe some bragging rights. And it's, we'd like to say in our Discord, you know, it's like, you all were here helping shape the roadmap of the future of this network, and those who are building on the networks that are our testing environments right now are really helping us find and identify the problems that will make our mainnet even better and stronger. And so it's a really awesome community that we're creating and shaping. But PJ, I'm sure you can appreciate like what a fun and awesome opportunity is to be building a community from scratch. Like we are shaping something from nothing, and it's incredible opportunity to be able to say to y'all, hey, come be a part of helping create something and be on the ground floor of it. And so we're creating a culture, we're creating something that y'all could very much be a part of in for the good of it, right? And so if any of you on your campuses are keen to maybe, I don't know, collaborate or you know, want to get Midnight into your clubs, or have us come do a workshop or something, like we would love to do that and explore what that might look like. We know that students are going to, you know, really unlock something for us. You know, Jay and I are too old to, not to speak on your behalf, Jay, right? Like you're much younger than myself even, but like the use cases of what this tech could do are so unlimited. And so I think working with students is absolutely necessary for us. And I really find like hackathons even, or just idea-a-thons are the best way for us to get creative with how we can use this tech for good. And there's no limit of what we can be. It's really powerful of what we can be doing with this important technology for the future. So thanks again for this opportunity.
Absolutely. No, congratulations. That's really exciting. Really exciting. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I want to add on here, especially, you know, for college students, for me personally, I always wanted to build a business when I was in college, right? So I tried a million different things. But I think the amazing opportunity here, when you really think about it, is since we're early, since we're launching and you're here really early, you can be one of the first businesses in your particular niche, right? So like when I talk to, let's say, different companies that are talking about, hey, like deploying NFTs, I'm like, if I'm a user and I want to deploy an NFT, you may be the only platform I can do that on at the very beginning, right? So that's a massive opportunity, especially if you're young, you're building new companies. You can grab up that entire audience that I mentioned earlier that has all these different tokens, that has all these different wallets. They're going to be rushing to looking for opportunities as soon as the network goes live. What can I do with this network? What can I play around with? What can I test with? So you'll be one of the first available applications that they can interact with. And that's a massive opportunity, especially because you have the foundation behind you, right? We promote a lot of these different applications. Like I mentioned, the tools from our ecosystem partners and stuff. So if you have something really cool, even at the community level, we're bringing you onto Dev Hangouts. So think about it as like not only an opportunity to build a business really early, but in a market where like you may be one of the few vendors, and with the marketing support from a huge foundation that's going to push your products out there, that's going to get it in the hands of all these users. So that's a better opportunity than like launching an app on like a Play Store or like Google Play or Apple or something like that. You're not going to get that level of support or that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Opportunities abound.